Then and now, we got the crown when we rock the town. Hot sound, keep us breaking ground while we chillin' lounge. 3 generations, black nerd soldiers, podcast snipers trying to pop culture. Allegedly, haters try to talk, but a pedigree in rare form.
Hello everyone. It is Captain Diesel, King of the Comics, and Lelouch V, and
you're listening to the Then and Now podcast.
And we are here with a very, very, very special episode. We say every episode is special, but this one in particular is something interesting. This video, I guess, was created from a conversation me and King of the Comics had during our last live stream, in which we wanted to break down scenes. We always discuss scenes in film and shows a lot when we're reviewing stuff, and I thought it would be dope, and King of the Comics thought it'd be dope to just specifically break down scenes that we reference a lot throughout our videos and whatnot. So before we get into it, how are y'all doing, my brothers? Y'all doing all right?
Doing good. Doing good.
Enjoying the sounds of the new intro from Sparks and Swats that we've been having in the bag for a minute. Just hadn't finally got it out. So shout out to them. Yeah. And we got some content to go over. I'm looking forward to it. They might need to cut you off, bro. What's going on, brother?
No. It's cool. It is a very special episode for another reason too. It is our very esteemed producer's birthday. Well, technically, it's his birthday eve, but it's his birthday coming up. His birthday will be tomorrow. So by the time this video comes out, he'll already have had birth again, I guess, whatever. But yeah, happy birthday to our producer. May you live many, many, many more years.
Producercito, happy birthday, hermano, my guy.
What's that? What Feliz Cumpleaños,
yeah, guys.
right? Yeah.
Feliz Cumpleaños. Yeah. I can't speak today.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, guys, today, we are discussing tension. It's a conversation we've had a couple times in the past in regards to how to build tension. Normally, we discuss tension in reference to horror movies and how they do it, just because usually horror movies kind of do it back to the fundamental levels of the different things you do to build tension up. But there is a show that is returning. At this point, we're recording it 2 weeks, that I feel like has done tension above every other show out right now in regards to how you just make people feel unease during scenes, that being The Boys. Before we get into it, I want to ask you guys about your tension, about how this particular show builds tension. Usually, again, Homelander is like the tension maker in this show, but what does this show do differently in your guys' opinions that others don't do in regards to building tension?
So this is something that has come up before in conversation. I know that you love yourself some Homelander. Anthony Stark, great actor, of course, great show. I don't necessarily feel the same level of tension when Homelander himself is around that you do. There are scenes that he's in that do have some, but just him being around isn't inherently making it tense. I feel like tension is a different kind of formula to make it work. And having a big bad that is powerful isn't necessarily the key to suspense or tension in that regard. But we'll get more into that a bit later on too.
Yeah. Actually, I wouldn't necessarily say I feel the opposite of King of Comics, but I think I may be in between the two. I think that it's not necessarily knowing that Homelander is all powerful that makes the moments with him intense. It's just the lack of stability, because you don't know how he's going to react to anything that he sees at any time. I think that level of chaos is always interesting to be around. It makes everybody a little bit uncomfortable. But I think that The Boys in general does a good job of holding tension, because they shine a light on how real moments feel, but adding the extra emphasis of oh yeah, these are superheroes now. Like it's a level of authority above just police or just what you would see in real life. Like this is a being that can run through you and turn into a pool on accident.
Right. Yeah, that's what it really boils down to, I think. And we all agree on that, though. It is the cat and mouse, the heightened level of cat and mouse, which is very different from the comic books. But in this world, it's like it's having someone that's super duper itty bitty tiny microscopic David versus a massive giant overwhelming psychotic sociopathic Goliath, so to speak. So yeah, that in of itself is engaging, very engaging. But to get more into suspense and tension, it's a few more degrees we'll get into. So yeah, but back to you though, Jeff.
So let's kick it off with the first clip. This one's gonna be a little bit of a lighter jab in regards to it, and then we'll get into the second one. But let's start this first one, which is the finale of Gen V.
Sir, I
An amazing line. Good.
What kind of animal are you?
What?
Do you like attacking your own kind?
No, I,
Stay back!
So, to start with that scene, I think I want to start from the very beginning in something that was dope. Looking at least remembering up to that scene, how they had Homelander's music coming and playing in like it was about to be Come to the Rescue Day. Obviously, a lot of people that have watched the show prior understand it's not what it's going to be, but they have the grandiose Superman-esque music playing, like he's coming to save the day, and then it record scratches. And at that moment, I feel like they level the playing field to zero. And I say that even more for the factor of you didn't hear any kind of background music. All you heard was just him walking, them talking, and you felt the tension being built up. And it started to build at the very first word and very first line he delivered was asking her, "What kind of animal are you?" And we've talked about many different ways of how tension can be built up. Me and Ethan had a conversation like a year ago about it, in particular in a video on my channel, where music is a big thing and sound, just playing with sound in general. And sometimes lack thereof can be very like eerie because, again, as human beings, we're used to hearing some kind of sound in movies to set mood. So the lack of sound and him delivering that eerie ass line with the level of acting he has in his facial expression really like kicked off. I'm like, oh shit, he's about to be on some fuck shit already. Especially when you know who the character is and what he's done in the past. It's like, okay, we know he's about to do some bullshit. What is it about to be? Now I'm on the edge of my seat now. What about y'all? How did y'all feel about the scene in general from the start?
You can go, Lelouch. Go first.
Yeah, I felt similarly. I think that, like, yeah, not only did they kind of have the record scratch at the beginning of it, but they, towards the end of the music, they started inverting the sound. I think that added a level of, like, you know, just immersiveness to it. It's like, oh, like, this is really not gonna go the way you want it to go. And then, like you said, like, you know, the sheer lack of sound, like, you know, the relief that the cast has, but the audience knows, like, you know, exactly how bad it's going to turn. I felt like added another level of, like, not necessarily tension, but like you just anticipation to the scene, seeing exactly how extreme he was going to react to it. Also, just like, you know, the way the scene itself just kind of plays with expectations. Like, in typical TV fashion, you expect things to kind of like revert to the norm at the end of a episode, right? Like, you just say, like, oh, you know, the heroes beat the big bad and now things are going to get wrapped up and be good. But knowing this boy's universe, like, it's not going to go like that. You just got to wonder exactly how extreme it's going to get. And I think they do a good job of playing with expectations, and then also playing with just the way that their actors are, well, not their actors, but their characters are portrayed in the world.
Yeah, I actually agree with some of the things you all are saying, and I disagree with some of the things you all are saying. So I like that you brought the point as far as the music or the sound. There's no diegetic sound in this, so that's basically if there was music or something playing in the background in the actual scene, we would hear in the actual world of the boys, but we could also hear it the same way. So, for example, like in the movie The Titanic, when the band is playing on at the end, they hear it in the movie, and we also hear it in our world and sort of thing. There's none of that here, but there was before. So one thing that actually is very important is the context. Right before the Homelander flies down, everything is going full blown. It is it is like D-Day out there. It is horrible. It is the worst case scenario times 10. But once he shows up, literally just him showing up, him flying in there with that song that drops for his theme song, hits, and everyone just like stops dead in their tracks. And like Otis and I'm sorry, like, Lelouch and Diesel, like I was saying before, yeah, once he shows up, the music's playing. It's like, okay, cool, our hero's here, and then they're the scratch, and then it gets diverted. It's like, oh, something's off, something's wrong, something's weird. Now the thing about it is, where I kind of deviate from y'all's interpretation, for me, it was almost humorous. It was almost like, oh, okay, it's getting weird and kind of wonky around here. Something's funky. And then once he said, "What kind of the line? What kind of animal are you, or animals are you guys?" Whatever. I chuckled. I did it again. It's like, because it's funny. It's kind of a weird line. That level of humor, yes, of course, it can make you feel unsettled, but also it can cut tension. So, for example, oftentimes if you do like a speech, the first thing you say is a joke or what have you, to kind of cut the tension, kind of remove that barrier in the room. That's what happened here. So because of that, I'm not on edge anymore. And again, because we saw so much brutal stuff happen right before, seconds before this is much more of a kind of a weird Deus Ex Machina, a weird kind of reverse denouement, so to speak. So it's not that this scene doesn't have any teeth. It has teeth, of course, but I'm not as on edge or tense because I saw so much big stuff already happen. I'm much more like, okay, what's going to happen to get this over with real quick? Because it's not going to be long. Also because of the back of my mind, I'm thinking, wait a minute, they didn't pay Anthony Starr to come in for a long time. This will be fast. Whatever he does will be done quick. So that's kind of why my brain is a little bit different with that. It's still a great scene. I still love the moment, but I wasn't quite on edge when I watched it. If that makes sense.
All right. So again, we brought up Daniel Starr. You brought up Anthony Starr, and I wanted to get into that as well as regards to the amount of credit that goes to the actor for assisting in establishing tension in the scene. The thing that he does amazingly well, even in the Boys series and in the film, what was the horror film I saw him in? It was Web
with the house,
something of the sort.
Yeah, with the house beats like Spiderweb or something like that, or Cobweb.
Yeah, Cobweb. Yeah, he does an amazing job at his acting with his face. There's a lot of times where he won't say a single word, but he'll just like breathe a certain way or exhale a certain way and give you a certain look. In this scene in particular, it was him exhaling and like giving the finger of just like stop, and he was just like, you saw a sense of almost frustration on his face, which again, that goes back to us knowing the history of this character and a lot of the tendencies he has and how unhinged he is. Yeah. So when you're seeing him like kind of contemplating what he's going to do, we're like, oh shit, we know it could be the worst of the worst, like him dropping a plane full of people that are crying for help, or it could be something as simple as him clapping a blind man's ears and leaving him bloody on the floor. So we've seen him do the extreme of the extreme, and playing on that level of anticipation with just him, with just him breathing, you kind of have an understanding. Okay, this could be really bad or kind of bad. There's almost never any good with him. Was there anything else you guys noticed about his acting in particular that kind of helped set the scene or set the tension?
Not necessarily his acting, but just thinking of like the history of the character, it was a little bit of ironic, just saying like you're judging somebody else for hurting a suit.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you are you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that added another level of this, I guess, like contradiction to the character of Homelander, which I appreciated. But like, you know, my brain was like, "Yo, you are saying this." Check this. Isn't there a rooftop with old dude's like face on it?
Several, probably.
Yeah, like I mean,
yeah.
Well, we won't go there.
But the pot is the screaming kettle black pot screaming it. Yeah.
And that's one thing I'll add to really quickly in regards to the Jesus Christ, I just had my thought and lost it just that fast.
The do-rags?
That did not help me. I don't think the do-rags. Jesus Christ.
Well, one thing I was to say real quick too is
go ahead.
Is obviously about Anthony Starr and Homelander himself, is because he is always pretty much on the edge. He himself. It's kind of like in a sense, and I don't mean to be like, oh, we've gotten used to him being such a loose cannon all the time that we kind of he's dulled our senses. But in some ways, it almost feels a little bit like that, especially in this show, because he wasn't invested. He himself clearly wasn't invested. Even the way he came in kind of like almost half-assed, like, what's going on here? You guys are small puppies, children to me. What's this nonsense? if it was like Butcher, right, or Huey or whatnot, someone he actually has a personal grudge against, or Jensen Ackles, Soldier Boy, it's like, yo, he's coming in there to play. He's coming in to mess things up. But with these guys, he came in like, I don't care. Two, who are you? Yeah, it's a different scenario altogether. And one last thing that's involved when it comes to tension, there's basically 4 main steps, and it's kind of a fifth silent one. But the fifth silent one is context. The context of this scene basically is, this is their war, this is their squabble on their turf, and some random outsider shows up at the last minute. It's kind of like, he's really not, he himself is also like, why am I here? And so on some level, that kind of lessens the scenario. If it was like, if say for example, all these kids that are involved in Gen V had a personal grudge against, there's a character they have a personal grudge against, right? If she had shown up, I can't remember her name right now, but if she had shown up, it'd be like, oh my God, it's kind of like, it's much more like, yeah, this is a big, huge, everything's raised to the nth degree. But having him as a guest star, it's kind of like, wait, what? I was almost caught off guard seeing him more so than I was like taken aback. So it's a
right.
There's all those things involved, kind of with kind of steers the level or ratchets the level of tension up or down, so to speak.
And it does remind me what I was going to say as well in regards to the context of the scene. As an individual scene, like looking at it from Ethan's perspective, I can understand it not being as significant. I think a lot of what made the scene great to me was the context of the entire series watched up until that point in regards to knowing his history, his tendencies, like I said before, and understanding that this is like going to be the build up into something, because I cut that part out of the scene, but like the after part where they're kind of showing the news of who survived and what was going on, because a lot of this show was just really like an intermission almost in regards to the next season of The Boys, where a lot of this stuff is just kind of, I felt like this show is really just setting up plot points and devices that were going to be used going forward for the next season.
True.
So having that proper context, and me get hit a little harder, but I can understand if you're just watching and that happens with a lot of scenes. I feel like certain scenes hit harder with the context of prior scenes. I look at something like The Dark Knight, where I'm seeing the Joker say the same line of, do you want to know why I got these scars? I know I've seen previously where he's told me a completely different story and killed somebody. And I've seen him spare some people in regards to certain measures. So seeing what he's done in the past kind of gives me an expectation and makes me anticipate what he's going to do next more, because I don't know what's going to happen, or I have a 100% matter of fact know what he's going to do in the situation.
Yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree. Yeah,
sure. We can get into the next scene. This one's a little heavy. This is a heavy hitter. I forgot about this scene. I'm glad Ethan suggested this one.
Erinnerst du dich an den Tag, Frederick? Chloe hat die Arme aus dem Autofenster gestreckt. Wir haben den perfekten Platz am Fluss gefunden, im Schatten eines Apfelbaums. Es war das erste Mal,
Ryan,
dass Chloe frische
do you do this?
gegessen hat.
I didn't mean to.
Es war perfekt.
Let's go.
Ich wollte, dass nie zu Ende geht.
Come here. Come. Ryan. Ryan. Come here.
there's that face acting, boy.
No. He's mine. What, are you gonna blow yourself up? You save the little shit that fucking murdered your wife?
He's about to do some heinous shit just then.
Yeah.
Having your way.
Stop.
We first stop it right there. That's Where's the
What are you doing here?
You're gonna let them go.
And if I don't?
Let them go. You're gonna stop hunting Starlight. You're gonna leave me and Elena alone. Or I release this.
If you do that, I'll destroy everything and everyone.
Great. As long as everyone sees what a fucking monster you are. As long as no one ever loves you again.
So, Ethan says a lot in this show. His favorite phrase is "show, don't tell." For me in particular, watching the scene, I saw that to the nth degree in a lot of different moments. In regards to showing how much of a monster he is, that's very apparent. The contrast of seeing him covered in blood and guts, and them speaking very softly initially when he's speaking to Owen, where he's trying to be that soft paternal figure and be like kind and kind of put him at ease. Then you're looking at him and you literally looks like a monster, and you're seeing that physically there. Even more so going into the aspect of when Maeve was discussing him being a monster and wanting everybody to see that. You, in this moment of the show, maybe in the next season, maybe it's more so that, but I can't think of any other moment besides this one in the show where he is like unapologetically himself. Because a lot of times in different scenes, you see him put on this facade of being Captain America type, where he does fucked up shit, but he's doing it with the mask on. This is the first time in the series where I feel like you're seeing him where he's speaking very candidly and being him 100%, where he's saying, I will destroy everything you care about, and just being him. It's stuff like this in the scene where like we're showcasing how unhinged he is and how fucked up he is without having anybody have to say it really or reinforce that with a million actions. Even more so, the crowning moment we spoke about sound before was done perfectly in regards to showing how much he really needs people to love him. Having that little soundbite of people cheering his name and momentarily just shows how much he really needs that for him to feel like he's alive, I guess, for lack of a better word.
And it's just in his head. That crowd cheering is only in his head. Clearly, as he's turning his hood down, he's like, it shows like that's how much it means to him. He's imagining it, daydreaming about it, fantasizing about it. Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this scene, again, it has home. This is one of my favorite Homelander scenes of all time in the series, because, like you said, everything you said is right. It does showcase exactly what he is. And granted, the context by the time we get to Gen V, we already know much more how much of a monster he is. But this one is one of the first times we actually see, in full display, in front of other characters, just how much of a monster he is. And more in particular, his son Ryan really sees how much of a monster he is. I believe it's the first time Ryan sees him covered in blood. Even though his dad has bullied him in the past, it's the first time Ryan sees him actually like full blown, dripping in goo and human viscera. And the son makes a choice to go with essentially would be, I guess, his stepfather with Butcher as opposed to his actual father. That making that choice. And also this one, as opposed to the last scene, this does have some music, not quite music, but it does have a sound cue. It's kind of like a sound bed there, basically playing like almost a horror movie theme, which also makes things that much more tense. And real quick, what I want to say is what the actual elements of tension actually are. Number one is the known. Number two is the unknown. Number three, it's timing. And number four, it's stakes. Okay. So basically what that basically means is like the known. What we know here, the actual variables that are known, we have Homelander, and he is a sociopath that can do all kinds of damage to people. That's a big known. We have a small child who is afraid of his dad. We have a butcher who's trying to protect his kid, but ultimately we know he can't protect him against. If Homelander wants to tear him apart, it's over. The end, period. That's what's big. Those are the main things that are known. Unknown, of course, is what Homelander will do. That's the biggest part of tensions, is the idea of like the unknown is the biggest most thing we fear the most, obviously. The stakes, of course, are that Ryan could die. A boy could be killed by his father, or worse, could be taken by his father and raised by him. Could you imagine him being raised by this dude? Horrible. That's another thing too. But my favorite element of tension or suspense is what Alfred Hitchcock himself kind of doubled down on, what's called time. It's timing. So the previous scene we watched with that Lelouch suggested is cool. It's great, but in a way, it's a little brief. It's so brief that it's hard to really get invested in the tension. This scene does have more time as far as letting things drag out, letting things pull out a bit more, so you actually feel that much more of a weight on your chest as things are happening or things are unfolding. And it gets to the ultimatum as far as like, essentially, it's very clear that Homelander is not going to give up the kid, and it's just them. It's just Homelander it's Homelander versus Butcher. And Homelander says, have it your way. And for all we know, he's ready to fly right at him and just kill him on the spot. That moment right there, as it's building towards, it builds toward that, that's as things are getting the most, is ratcheting the tension the most, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with the majority of everything that was said here. I think that it is the peak of when you realize exactly how unstable Homelander is in the series and understand exactly what lengths he'll go through just at a whim. You also, it raises a great question of exactly of what his internal compass is, because I mean, he is calling to his son to come to him after watching him, like, you know, fry his now ex-girlfriend on the ground there. That moment was honest, like her on the ground speaking German like that was honestly kind of hilarious to me. Like I was trying to like not chuckle at it when we were doing that. I know that's probably
it's the elbow up that's killing
me.
Yeah,
it's a weird scene, man. It's a weird scene.
But Anthony Starr really just does an amazing job of just like, you know, throwing off like what is this guy gonna do? Like it's the level of unpredictability, so feeding into the unknown, that really makes him an exciting character to see on screen. I think having Butcher there just to kind of be like doom and gloom, just to say that one line of no, I think that adds another layer of tension to it too, like saying like, you know, he's going to protect this kid even though he had every reason to abandon him. I think that is a great moment within itself, understanding the context of that scene. I don't know what he thinks he's going to do, because I mean, like,
yeah,
it was over.
It was over.
He was ready to.
There was no
heinous shit.
There was no.
To do some heinous shit.
It was over. Yeah.
Overall,
that's the. Yeah, the thing is often, I mean, regardless of how amazing a scene is, how high the tension gets, there has to be something, of course, to resolve it. And in this case, of course, it was on off-screen. Deus Ex Machina with Maeve, but it was set up from before. It was a planned and payoff, but it was kind of a thing that came in, 25th hour, so to speak. But it's I like this scene a lot because, like as y'all said, it does reveal exactly what this madman actually is. Also, I love the idea that, because again, context. If we're saying about context, this one, like you mentioned, Homelander just lost his crazy ass Nazi girlfriend right there. Basically, she's having a meltdown and falling apart in front of him. Hilarious as it might be, and also Butcher just lost his long life, the love of his life, essentially, and he just lose her. He lost her because the Homelander's kid killed her on accident. Yes, inadvertent might be, but he killed her. So there's a lot of like. Emotions are all over the place here. It's kind of like, because at one level too, before this, you're wondering what's Butcher gonna do to this kid? This kid's not safe anywhere. And so it's a lot of, the tension keeps ratcheting up more and more and more and more. And there seems like for in a lot of ways, nowhere is safe. And so it's just when Homelander breaks down like laughing, it's kind of like that's how we feel too. We're like, it's almost like a massive WTF moment. Like, what's going on? I have no idea what's going to happen. So yeah, that made it fun for me.
Last thing I want to speak on in regards to something that these scenes do well, and one of the things that I enjoy about tension, and sometimes enjoy about just the fundamental aspect of horror a lot too when it comes to building tension, is the efficiency of it. In the scenes we've mentioned and the scenes we've watched, there was very minimal dialogue. Like there is a little bit of exposition with the Maeve stuff, so because he's explaining what's going on. But for the most part, these scenes, these characters didn't say too much. Most of the tension and the unease is built through the acting, like we mentioned before, through the music, like we mentioned before, and some of the camera shots and some of the directorial aspects of it. But I love how efficient it is and how pure it is that you can do something to make people feel a certain type of emotion without having to tell them what they should be feeling, which is something that we've mentioned a lot, being a problem with a lot of movies we've covered on the channel up to this point.
Exactly. Even with the bare bones context, like if I showed it to my mom, who has no idea what The Boys even is, she could tell clearly, oh, this dude in the blue suit with the red cape and the blonde hair is clearly a dangerous being. In the first clip we watched, a world basically at war stopped when they saw him flying down, right? They were freaking out. Their eyes are all bug-eyed beyond reason, right? Watching, look at this guy. Could barely speak. None of them could speak. None of them spoke. I forgot her name now. She spoke. She tried to speak like one word to him. Basically, he shut her up with raising his finger. Clearly shows how much of impact he has. In the next scene, everyone is keeping a massive giving that dude a wide berth, like just keeping their distance from him. So clearly, just seeing that bare bones content, like you said, Dev, it really does add weight to how much of an impact this dude has, how big a presence his character is.
Yeah, going back to Charlie's last point, I think that silence does a better job of building tension than constant dialogue anyway. I think people are more uncomfortable when there's less being said. So using that correctly and, adding enough dialogue to make sure that the audience understands what's happening in the scene while still leaving enough silence to make it feel uneasy. I think that both of these scenes did that pretty well.
Absolutely. And another shout out to what Dev was saying earlier as far as his reactions. The reactions are key. I mean, they wouldn't have bothered to shoot them and show them if they didn't matter. And they clearly do.
Well, guys, that's all I have on the topic. You guys have any closing remarks on it from the stuff we covered so far in regards to tension and The Boys?
I'm intensely waiting for this season 4 to drop. Is that June 14th?
I believe so.
It's like 2 weeks, if not less than that.
Yeah, around there.
Definitely looking forward to that one. Been waiting for it, especially after seeing how Gen V went. I'm really excited to see what they do with this next season. I hope Jensen Ackles is back as Soldier Boy and we see more of that.
Yeah, they gotta find a way to put him in there. I mean, he's too popular for a fan favorite, not have him somewhere in there, somewhere.
Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you enjoyed this content, let us know in the comments below. Also in the description, you'll find us on any of our social media platforms in case you want to suggest another set of scenes or another particular topic that you want us to cover, whether it be romance, comedy, whatever it may be. I'm down to cover whatever. I enjoyed this particular type of video. Hopefully you did as well. I think my brothers would share a similar sentiment. And this has been Captain Diesel, King of the Comics, and Lelouch V of...
You're listening to the Then and Now podcast.